All right, everybody. Thanks for tuning in to another installment of the Payoff Pitch. I'm your host, Valle. If you tuned in last week, I certainly appreciate it, especially considering that the show was a little over 30 minutes. Don't worry, most of the show is going to be about 5 to maybe 10 minutes long. I might do a 30-minute show once a month, just kind of recap the month and see where the Orioles stand. But like I said, most shows are going to be about 5 to 10 minutes long. So, all right, let's get right into it. Orioles dropped another game today. They lost 6-5, leaving their record right now 5-14-3. 5 wins, 14 losses, 3 ties. Pitching, once again, struggled. Miguel Gonzalez, we talked about him at length in the first show. He was bad again today. He went 4 2/3 innings. He gave 4 earned runs on 2 home runs, leaving his record at 1-4 with a 12.52 ERA in 14 1/3 innings pitched this spring. Guys, that's not going to cut the mustard. I think at this point in spring, you're past working on stuff, and now you're looking at performance and results. And the performance and the results have not been good. I was asked by a buddy of mine, Gary Moxley, today, do I think Vance Worley takes Miguel Gonzalez's spot in the rotation? No, I don't think Vance Worley takes his spot. I don't think Vance Worley makes this team, to be honest with you. There's not a spot for him. I think he's either going to get traded or he's going to get reassigned, and they're going to try and pass him through waivers and hope that he accepts an assignment to a minor league club. I don't know that he will. That's the plan probably for him. If he accepts it, great. If not, best of luck in your future endeavors with another team. I just don't see him starting the season on the Orioles roster. That being said, I don't see Miguel Gonzalez starting the season on the Orioles roster either. I think because he has an option, because he was bad last year, because he's been bad this spring, I think he ends up in the Norfolk starting rotation to start the season. And I think Tyler Wilson actually has claimed that 5th rotation spot. Now, that's just my opinion, but that's what I believe has happened. Tyler Wilson, small sample size. He's gone 9 1/3 innings this spring. He's pitched to a 2.89 ERA. Last year he pitched to a sub-4 ERA and a few spot starts and some time out of the bullpen. I think he's earned a spot. I think he's pitched far and away better than Miguel Gonzalez, and I don't think if you want to contend, you can bring a pitcher that's been struggling as bad as Gonzalez has for such an extended period of time with you north. You can't bring him north with you. So, unfortunately, thank you for what you've done for the team, since 2012, Miguel, but it's what have you done for me lately? And lately, you haven't done much. Another question that was asked, actually quite a few questions were asked to me by my buddy Scott Wilson in a comment on the last video's page and on Facebook. He asked me, one, with teams striking out as much as they are now, is it as big a disadvantage now as it was back in the early to mid-90s when you had a team like the Detroit Tigers who had power hitters like Mickey Tettleton and Cecil Fielder and Rob Deere on the team? Those guys would hit 25 to 35 home runs a year, and they'd drive in 90 to 100 runs, but they'd also strike out 150 to 190 times. Is it as big a disadvantage now as it was back then? And the answer to that question is yes. Striking out is always a disadvantage because you're not putting the ball in play. You're not advancing runners. You're not bringing runners home by striking out, unless it's a drop third strike, which, come on. It's a disadvantage to strike out, plain and simple. I think people are more willing to look the other way when the guy that's striking out is a guy like a Chris Davis or a Pedro Alvarez, or back in the day, a guy like a Mickey Tettleton or a Prince Fielder, because of what they give you when they are making contact. And when they are making contact, they're hitting 40 home runs and driving in 100 runs every year. So you take the good with the bad, much like we spoke about last week. He also asked me, do I think that the Orioles should focus their higher draft picks on hitters now instead of pitchers, since they haven't shown an ability to draft and groom pitchers and keep them healthy? Kevin Gausman just hit a little bit of a setback with more shoulder tendonitis in his throwing shoulder. Last year, if you recall, he spent time on the disabled list at the beginning of the season with shoulder tendonitis. He got a cortisone injection. He hasn't pitched since this past weekend, and he's probably not going to pick up a ball and throw again until Friday at the earliest. So, should the Orioles draft hitters early instead of pitchers, since they can't seem to, grow these arms like they've been talking about? Honestly, Scott, I don't know that I can answer that question for you. Ideally, you'd like to draft a college pitcher, have him work his way through the minors very quickly, and get up to the big league club and help out as soon as possible. But like you said, the Orioles haven't shown an ability to do that in a very long time. So if you can draft a guy that can be plugged into a corner outfield spot, or he can be plugged into play, any position, hit for average and hit for power, I can't say you shouldn't do that just based on the Orioles' history. But I don't know that that's the ideal situation, especially with how bare our farm system is right now and how bad the pitchers at the minor league and major league level have been this spring. And the final question that Scott asked me, was about Dylan Bundy. He's pitched very, very well this spring. Looked very good. Showing signs of what made him, a first-round pick a few years ago. He said, "What are the Orioles going to do with him? Do you see him making some starts starting maybe in July?" No. Point blank, no. I think that Dylan Bundy is on a 70 innings pitched limit this year. I think that they're going to have him come in and out of the bullpen. And I think he's slotted to be in the starting rotation starting in spring training next year. However, MLB.com posed the same question to Buck today. And Buck said he's not ruling anything out. If in July he's pitched well to that point and he gives the Orioles the best option to win, he can't rule out putting him in the starting rotation. Maybe if you see him, not being used too frequently unless it's in a cleanup role, or if he starts pitching in a higher pressure role and he's pitching very well, but he's still not getting a ton of innings, maybe that's them saving him for the rotation later in the summer when they really need him. So, not totally sure. I don't foresee him starting, but I'm not making the calls. Buck is, and if that's what Buck wants to do, then that's what Buck wants to do, because he is all about winning now, and I think the rest of us should be too, because we have a pretty good team. Tommy Wimmer asked me, do I think that there should be more emphasis on the bullpen and less emphasis on the starting rotation this year, since Peter Angelos doesn't seem to want to spend a ton of money on starters. The starters we do have been mediocre at best over the last year and a half. I don't think that you want your bullpen pitching 4 to 5 innings, as Tommy suggested, on a daily basis. I know that the starting rotation leaves a lot to be desired right now. They do have, history of success in the past. That said, again, what have you done for me recently? And not a lot. So, but your starting pitchers need to get you through the 6th and 7th innings on a regular basis. And when the Orioles back end of the bullpen, if their starters are routinely going 6 and 7 innings, I think it only helps the club, especially with the mashers that they have in the lineup. They're going to score a ton of runs. So no, it doesn't matter how good of an arm you have, how many great arms you have in your bullpen. You could have a bullpen that has, Carson Smith, Darren O'Day, Brad Brock, Craig Kimbrell, Aroldis Chapman, Dylan Betances, and Andrew Miller in it, and Zach Britton closing it out. I don't care how many of those arms are that great. If they're pitching 4 to 5 innings on a nightly basis, they're going to wear out, and they're going to wear out quickly. We're talking June, July, at the latest. And then you're hurting, and you're scrambling. And we all know from watching the Orioles lose for 14 consecutive seasons is that's not really something that we want to see. So hopefully the starters are better this year. Hopefully they revert back to that 2014 form. Hopefully Ubaldo reverts back to his 2010 and 2013 form. Hoping. Other than that, that's all the questions that were really asked of me since the last show. Just want to say again, give my my gold star for Joey Rickard to make the team. Out of spring training, he's going to. The guy's going to be on the team. He's hitting about 360, playing great defense, running the bases well. He's doing everything that they could have possibly asked for, and frankly, has played the outfield better than anybody else that's in the competition for the corner outfield spots. I don't know that he's an everyday player, but I think he has the potential to be, and I think that if they give him the opportunity, he might just run with it, because he has so far this spring. But we also know not to fall in love with spring performances. Just look at Jake Fox a few years ago, and even Jimmy Paredes last year. So, all right, guys, that's going to do it for me. Thanks for tuning in to the Payoff Pitch. Hopefully we'll do another show here in the next couple of days. Until then, go O's.